Hello, everyone out there. My name is Christian Moore. I hope everybody can find us. Excited to share with you what I know about resilience and my life's journey with resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. And one of the key ingredients to being resilient is having something to bounce back from. And I know over the last year, there's been no shortage of difficulty, opposition, challenges that all of us have had to bounce back from. Often when someone speaks in a venue like this, they're there speaking because they've accomplished some great things in their life. They're already highly resilient. They've had maybe business success, financial success. They may be a great athlete. They played in the NBA or they played in the NFL, or they're a great musician or a famous rapper, or you name it. They've done something special in their life. Now, I'm going to start out by having you guys guess why I'm here speaking. I'm actually here speaking to you all today because I was a professional rapper. I rapped all across this country for about 25 years, flew 7 million miles as a rapper. And I thought, some of you might not believe I'm a rapper, so I'm gonna bust a rhyme for you. I'm the educated rapper from Maryland. I'll be here today. I'll be gone tomorrow because I'm bad like that. My name is Jack. I like to drive the Cadillac. All right. Now, if I could see you, I'd have you raise your hand if you think I'm here speaking to y'all today because I'm a professional rapper. But it's probably obvious. I didn't hang out with 50 or Snoop Dogg or any of those guys. I didn't get that opportunity. So not a professional rapper. Actually, um, played in the NBA. I was a point guard in the NBA. And, I don't know if you believe me, stand up. You can see it. Well, can't kind of see my height there, but I'm sure it's obvious to you all. I didn't play in the NBA either. The real reason why I'm here speaking to you all today, and because of time, I got to jump into it. I'm one of the world-renowned leading experts in what I call the two F's: fear and failure. I attended the University of Adversity. So I just want to start out by sharing a few of my failures with you. I was entered into a baby contest as a child, and was born a boy. I am a boy, and I literally won a baby contest. Is the cutest baby girl in Southern California, so that's one of my interesting failures early in life. And then I failed the first grade, and then I struggled in school. I struggled with basic math and reading skills all the way through school. Um, when I was even in my senior year of high school, I didn't know how to tell time on a hand clock. To me, a quarter to five equals literally 25 minutes to five, but they tell me a quarter is 15. So I had a hard time with telling time. Again, had a hard time reading. When I was in school, I went out for several sports teams and got cut. I'm thinking, man, I'm failing academically. I'm failing in sports. I thought, well, maybe I can find my talent. Maybe I'm a great singer. And I learned that the school choir was open. They let everybody into the school choir. So I try out for the school choir. I get in, I'm thinking, man, maybe I found my place on the planet. I get in, and we're singing the song about fish and chips and vinegar. I remember the teacher pulling me aside after the first choir practice and saying, "Hey, Christian, can you please mouth the words, man? You're killing our whole choir." I'm like, wow, oh my goodness, man, I'm feeling it, everything. I may be the first person that has no talent on planet Earth. And then I also remember, man, I met this beautiful girl named Tisha. I'm thinking, man, I really like her. And I sat next to her, in the cafeteria, and I was like telling her how much I liked her. I had saved up my money and got this white Ozide shirt. Ozide, IZOD, was the down with it shirt back in the day. And that was in the late 70s. Confessed my love to her. And she wanted to communicate to me she wasn't interested in me. And she picked up, we were eating spaghetti that day, her bowl of spaghetti, and literally chucked it all over me. And I'm thinking, man, I'm failing academically. I'm failing with the girls. I'm failing in sports. There is nobody worse than me for as having talent. Then I also had anxiety, man. When I was around a lot of people, I felt fear, I felt anxiety. And so it was just failure and failure and fear after fear. And a lot of those fears were also rooted in the challenges that I had at home, at school, and with some of my friends. So first, tell you a little bit about my home life. I grew up in between, DC and Baltimore, in a family of 12 kids, five brothers, six sisters. I'm the eighth child. Um, my mom had something called social phobia, generalizing anxiety disorder. My mom had a fear of leaving the house. You have to leave the house to go get food. So there wasn't a lot of food to eat in my house growing up. There's usually pickles, olives, and tuna fish. I'm gonna write a cookbook one day, 101 ways how to eat those three things. The next person to tell you a little bit about is my dad. He's very intelligent. He graduated from high school 2 years early, and he went to work for the U.S. Postal Service sorting mail. The U.S. Postal Service could tell he had a tremendous talent. You could say to him 5,898 times 10,852, and he could instantly rattle that off the top of his head. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Rain Man or Beautiful Mind. You guys are probably too young to see those two movies, but my dad was literally a genius. And so because he was a genius in math, he was very valuable to the US government. On his 18th birthday, two gentlemen pulled up in front of the US Postal Service and drove him, because we're in the DC area, to a place called Fort Meade, Maryland. And on Fort Meade is a place called the National Security Agency. It's one of the US spy agencies. You're probably more familiar with the FBI, the CIA. There's another one called the NSA that's a little more secretive. And he became the highest level spy that you can become. But now I realize my dad was also autistic. So I have an autistic dad, a mom who has major anxiety, has a fear of leaving the house. As a child, I'm diagnosed with something called ADHD, conduct disorder, and severe learning disabilities. And so, I mean, I was asking myself growing up all the time, why should I try? Why should I turn in my homework? Why should I stay in school? Why should I put effort into life? Because, it's the smart kids are going to get the opportunity to go to college. It's kids that from families that have money, that have resources. These are the kids that are going to thrive. I knew, man, my situation is a difficult situation. It's going to be pretty hard for me. In my neighborhood, most kids my age had to go into the house pretty early, but because of my parents' mental health issues, I could run the streets till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so when my, kids my age would go in the house earlier, I'd run around with the older kids. The older kids quickly introduced me to the urban pharmaceutical industry. If you know what that means, the older kids oftentimes would put the drugs on me. This is as young as 7 years old, because they knew I wouldn't be checked. And they would tell me, you run towards the police, we're going to run away. And I'd run over to the police. The police would hand me Washington football team cards. That was the NFL team there in Washington. Give me these football cards and take me home. The police never checked me. So by the time I was 7 years old, I became aware of a lot of social justice issues. It's one of the things that got me interested in becoming a social worker and doing some of this work. And, when I was a kid growing up, I didn't even know there was a profession like social work where, the only skills I had is I could talk nonstop. I cared about people not being hurt and people being safe. I'm like, wait a minute, there's actually a job that enables you to help people, because I might not be born with any talent, any skills, but man, I noticed when I felt best inside is when I was doing something for someone else, man. That gave me some inspiration, that gave me hope when I was kind of getting out of my own brain and my own, sometimes my brain would tell me what's wrong with me and focus on all my mistakes. I noticed if I could turn outward and focus on other people, I felt happier. So that's what got me interested in becoming a social worker a little bit and doing some of the speaking. Well, anyways, going back to my younger days of life and when I had a hard time answering the question, why try? I was out late at night and a car pulled up and the windows on the car slowly rolled down. And I take off to run and I hear a voice. Let me pull this up right here. And the voice I hear is the voice of a woman who I endearingly call Mama Jackson. Let me pull this up here for you. And here is a quick picture of me, Mama Jackson, and Sean. Now, see if you can figure out who I'm in the picture. That's me in my Washington football team coat there. And I had really curly hair at the time. I started kind of putting dippity-doo in my hair to kind of slick it back so it wasn't so crazy. And that's my buddy Sean on the right. I can only hang out with Sean till 5, 6 o'clock at night because Mama Jackson knew what all good moms know. Who you guys kick it with is going to have a tremendous impact on your future. So she sees me out there in the middle of the night. She knows what I'm out there on the streets doing. And she's like, look, Christian, don't you ever set foot on our property again. I'm going to call the school tomorrow. I'm going to make sure you're not in any of my son's classes. And I remember thinking to myself, dang, I know I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. I can never, ever even go to school with him again. So I felt pretty sad. I felt pretty devastated. Well, luckily, Sean started explaining to his mom the reality of my home life. He's like, look, Mom, when I go over to Christian's house, it's kind of a strange house. They have no pictures up on the wall. There's a lot of yelling, hitting, fighting, depending where my mom's mental health was. She washed my sheets for me every night, so I never even had to sleep in the same sheets twice. So again, I come home, open up the refrigerator 5,000 times. When nothing would appear in the refrigerator, again, I start punching holes, fighting, a lot of anger. Well, Sean explains all this craziness to his mom. And a couple days later, I'm walking to school, and Mama Jackson comes flying out of her house in this blue bathrobe. And she's like, I'll tell you what, Christian, if you'll start going to school every day, I want to see your report cards. If you start answering to me, you can come eat in our house anytime you want. Now, Mama Jackson's a seriously, seriously good cook. That's the real reason why I'm in top physical condition today. So it's pretty much like an informal foster care situation. She took over and helped raise me. She'd go to my parent teacher conferences sometimes. She would make sure I had food to eat and just look out for me, man. She'd be there for me. The nicest thing would be when I was having a rough day, at the end of the day, I could just sit and talk to her, and she would just tell me, hey, Christian, look, hang in there. I know you can't change things at home. You can't change things in this neighborhood. You can't change things at school, but you have to take this anger, this rage you're feeling, and use that energy from that. If we have anger, there's an energy that kicks in. She's like, you got to use that anger as a reason to turn in your homework, to stay in school, to not give up. And so I was really lucky to have Mama Jackson show up in my life. I wouldn't be here talking to you all right now if Mama Jackson hadn't come into my life. Um, so Mama Jackson, long story short, she helps me get through college with severe learning disabilities, different challenges. When I finally graduate from college, Mama Jackson gets on an airplane, flies 2,000 miles across the United States, and sitting in the audience when I graduated from college. And that was one of the highlights of my life. And I thought, man, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure everybody gets access to some of the skills and resilience that Mama Jackson taught me. Also, I created a curriculum called Why Try that's in like 30,000 schools. And a couple of years ago, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Virgil Wood, who was actually really good friends with Dr. Martin Luther King, read my book. It's called The Resilience Breakthrough, learned about what we were doing and that we had reached millions of people across the country. And he just said, you wouldn't have had this opportunity without Mama Jackson. And so that's Dr. Virgil Wood to the left of Dr. King in those kind of horn-rimmed glasses there, marching. And there's Mama Jackson getting the National Rosa Parks Award outside of Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago. And, when I was a kid, I remember learning about the civil rights movement, learning who Martin Luther King was, and that, he dedicated his life to creating equality for everybody and the same opportunities, and that people should be respected no matter who they are, what background they're from, what culture they're from, and, dedicated his life to that work. And I remember as a kid, just, seeing the fire hoses and the violence towards African Americans and just feeling enraged as a child. And then one day being able to meet some of these heroes that dedicated their life to freeing other people and having other people, feel that respect. And again, that's the greatest happiness I've ever felt, is to fight for putting people in a better situation. And so again, if you feel like me, you don't have to have any magic skills or any special thing about you to care about other people. So for me, I'm an expert in fear and failure. But if you have a lot of fears, you have a lot of failure, a lot of challenges, it doesn't mean you can't be a hero for another human being. All of us can be heroic for others. And so if you're feeling kind of down right now or frustrated or feel like giving up, your superpower can really come from doing something for someone else, turning outward, caring about another human being. That's the real superpower that all of us have within inside of ourselves. And, Mama Jackson was, that hero for me, and as well as Dr. Wood here. Now, the last amount of time I have with you, I want to talk more about resilience, where resilience comes from a little bit internally, and some of the skills we have to use to be resilient. I want to pull up for you here, actually, let me do this. I'm going to just give you real quick a kind of a definition of resilience. Let me pull it up for you right here. So resilience is the ability to bounce back when you have every reason to shut down, but you fight on. Resilient people have both tapped and untapped reserves. And what I mean by untapped reserves is, I had two talents growing up. I could draw really good, and I could talk nonstop. Today, I make a living through nonstop talking. And then I help take a lot of stuff in mental health and make it visual. When I was a kid, I used to spray paint my name on a water tower. My street name was Mighty Moore because my last name is Moore, and I was the smallest one in the group. So they called me Mighty because usually, it's the opposite. If you're really big, they'll call you Smalls, all right? And so I paint my name on this water tower behind my school. And the next day it says $2,000 reward leading to the arrest, the person who did this graffiti. And I'm like, oh man, I'm in serious trouble. But anyways, I took that skill of drawing and then just kind of applied it to mental health. Um, just give you an example here since I'm talking about it. Let me just show you here. This is an example. This is some artwork I helped create with a friend here. Um, so this is just talking about decisions have consequences. I just kind of made that concept visual. Life's like a roller coaster. We go up, we down, we have good times, bad times. There's a picture of these cans help create. We have to tear off our labels. I had a lot of these labels growing up because of my challenges, failure, druggy, learning disabled, dumb, lazy, rebellious, attitude problems. So anyways, some of this art, this is a tribute. Let me show you this one with y'all real quick. This is a tribute to my home state of Maryland. If you put a bunch of live crabs in a pot, if you don't put a lid on the pot, why can't the crabs get out of the pot? Because the other crabs are reaching up and pulling them down. So I realized my friends, if I was gang banging, doing drugs, stealing, fighting, running away, all we were doing is pulling each other down. We're keeping each other in that pot. And then I started realizing, all right, part of the human condition is to be in that pot sometimes, is to have challenges, to have pain, to have difficulty. Every human being experiences these challenges. And when these challenges kick in, and remember, resilience has never happened without having suffering. Because remember, resilience is the ability to bounce back. Well, you got to have something to bounce back from. So the minute that suffering shows up, one of the first things we have to do is something I call flipping a switch, is to flip the switch. And what I mean by that is you have to ask yourself, how do I use this pain? How do I use this suffering as my best friend? How do I convert this into a resource, this difficulty I'm going through, whatever the crisis is, whatever the problem is, whatever the disrespect is, whatever the hurt is, how do I use this as a reason to become a greater human being, to work harder, to not give up? So it's like this gas pump, you have to flip this gas pump right here to get the gas out. You can see the fuel there is fear, anxiety, loneliness, guilt, anger. And for years, I didn't realize, wow, I could take even negative emotions and do something positive with them. Everybody probably knows the story of Michael Jordan getting cut from that, JV basketball team. One of the greatest basketball players of all time, if not the greatest, was cut from a high school team. But he said, because of that, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to become a greater basketball player. That's flipping the switch, is to say to yourself, okay, this is a rock bottom situation. This is a painful situation. I have every reason to shut down right now, but I'm not going to do that. That's flipping the switch. But you have to be aware that you have a switch to flip. And then as you start flipping the switch, your emotions change. Like when you're in the heat of the moment, you're in the heat of maybe the fear or the failure, you have no desire to flip that switch. For example, you might wake up in the morning and not want to get out of bed, but just by getting out of bed, you're going to feel better by just flipping that switch, walking across the room, going and eating breakfast, getting outside. When you feel like shutting down, to just get into movement is so important to help flip that switch, is to just not shut down, start doing something productive. Engage with people, talk to friends and family, go outside, get some exercise, watch a YouTube clip that is something inspirational, but don't stay in the same place. The more we move around, the more we get active, we know that helps us flip that switch. If we got to get into movement. The next thing that's really important to do to be resilient is, with resilience kicks in, we're going to have suffering, we're going to have pain. If that happens, we're going to have some negative emotions. And I look at life's emotions. During the day, we have like 40,000 different emotions. Sometime during the day, we're happy, we're motivated, we feel maybe peace, we maybe feel love. Our emotions are really positive. Another time of the day, we may have really negative emotions. We may feel sad, rejected, lonely. All positive and negative emotions are just part of the human condition. For example, if you charge a battery in a car, you can't charge a battery with just the positive connection, and you can't charge a car battery with just a negative connection. What enables the battery to charge is the combination between the positive and the negative. For example, if me being here right now speaking to you all was dependent upon these emotions: happiness, peace, optimism, trust, love, and acceptance. I just shared with you all my life story. There were times I didn't have a lot of that growing up. I'm here speaking to you all today because, like, Mama Jackson, she told me and showed me what to do with my anger, my fears, my pain, my depression. And I started realizing you have a huge advantage if you can push through and not give up when you have negative emotions. You know, whether emotion is positive or negative, our emotions give us energy. They're kind of the fuel behind us all day. So I don't know if when you're around someone, you might notice if they're sad or they're angry, depressed, that has a huge impact on their day. If they're feeling more motivation, more acceptance, more love, that has a huge impact on them. But what's really powerful is to realize couple things: that any emotion that you have is temporary. So whether I have a positive emotion, I have a negative emotion, it's not going to last. They're going to come, they're going to go. The emotions are kind of like clouds. You look out the window at 1 o'clock, you see a set of clouds. At 2 o'clock, you're going to see a completely different set of clouds going by. And our emotional state is very similar to that. Is that things don't stay the same. So one thing I'm going to encourage you to do is don't give up. If you're feeling negative emotions, if you're feeling sad, hurt, or angry, just hang in there, because in a little bit, you might have some other different type of emotions that are positive. Now, one thing you can do with these emotions is realize that whether an emotion is positive or negative, you have a choice on what you do with your actions, what you choose to do. Because I could have a negative emotion, someone could yell at me, put me down, and I can choose with my actions to walk away. If someone's yelling at me or someone puts me down, I can choose whether I'm offended, if I respond to that, if I'm going to make a decision that could impact the rest of my life, or I can, again, just walk away. So it's very empowering to not let an emotion control you, whether it's positive or negative, is to just pay attention to the emotion and say, hey, I'm going to make good decisions in my life, whether I feel happy or whether I feel sad. I'm going to make good decisions. I'm going to do things that don't hurt myself, don't hurt other people, no matter what my emotions are doing. Now, the thing I want to emphasize here is, keep in mind, it's as normal as breathing to have negative emotions. All human beings at different times of their life, or even on a daily basis, feel sadness, they feel hurt, they'll feel anger, they'll feel frustration, they'll feel misunderstood. Everybody experiences that every day. And you got to realize, look, I'm experiencing that. The people around me are experiencing that. So I'm not going to let it control me. I'm not going to let it shut me down. I'm going to push through. And then it's going back to that metaphor of the clouds. The sun is eventually going to show up. You can have a horrible storm of darkness, but if you notice, the sun always comes through the biggest storms. There's no storm that, in the worst tornadoes, hurricanes, snowstorms, um, any storm that nature has ever come up with, the sun has always won at the end. The sun will always shine through that. So never forget that. What's true in nature is also true in your own life. If you just hang in there and push through, and during those lows, you don't give up, again, that sun will come out. You'll be able to push through. So remember, positive and negative emotions are just a part of being human. If you feel sad, hurt, or angry, there's nothing wrong with you. It's normal. Everybody's experiencing that. And so what you want to eventually be able to do is to tap into your emotions, positive and negative, and use them as a fuel source, use them as a reason to not give up. And also just remember, all emotions are temporary. Any intense pain that you're feeling right now, again, that sun will come back up. Hope and love and joy and opportunity will come, but it might, be around the corner. Sometimes for me, it takes a couple of days. Sometimes for me, it takes a couple of weeks to make it come back from that. But it's never worth giving up, because that change is always around the corner. And one thing we can always count on is change is happening. Change is the one thing. So if you feel stuck right now, just hang in there. If you would have told me one day I'd get to speak to millions of people, I'd be able to speak on a college campus, I'd be in a college textbook, I have all these opportunities, I never dreamed in a million years anybody would care what I had to say, especially coming from all those fears and failures that I had growing up. But I just kept pushing through. I just kept showing up. And then good things started to happen. So look, if that can happen for me, I promise you that can happen for you as well. All of us can tap into this. Um, I want to share with you a place that resilience comes from internally, something you can turn to when you feel like giving up. Um, Let me pull this up right here, actually. There's something called, let me show you this. There's something called relational resilience. And that means you go through the motions, you don't give up because someone else needs you and you need them. These are my two kids, Cooper and Carson. You know, if I never got invited to speak again, I would go work or do whatever I had to do to make sure I can put food in their stomach. That makes me motivated, right? Because I need them, they need me. That creates motivation for me. So you want to have people in your life that know your strengths and they know your weaknesses and they treat you the same. They're kind of loving, they're unconditional. And then you use those relationships as a reason to push through and not give up. You know, Mama Jackson was that relationship for me. Your greatest power comes from human connections. You know, we're social creatures. One thing we've learned from COVID is we all need each other. And again, I needed Mama Jackson. In a couple of weeks, I'm gonna be with Mama Jackson. And then Mama Jackson, I live out west now. She's gonna be coming out here to see my son graduate. She helped me graduate, and then she's gonna be able to see my oldest son in a couple of weeks, Cooper, graduate. And so, relationships are something that's really important to motivate us. And again, the greatest relationships are people who love you, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Those are the relationships you want to cling on to the most. The next place that resilience comes from, you can use to build your resilience is something called street resilience. I told you I grew up as a street kid. So I create something called street resilience. And this just means you take You take the pain of disrespect, social inequality, and mistakes and use it as fuel to propel you forward. And, you know, human beings will disrespect each other over looks, over height, over weight, over skin color, belief system. And I want to really encourage you. I wish someone would have taught me this when I was your age, man. But you don't have to buy into that. We know it's only one race on this planet. It's the human race. We all come from different cultures, different identities, with different backgrounds, but we know genetically we're all 99.8% the same genetically. There is one race on this planet. And again, it's the human race. Please Google that. If you're not aware of that, you'll see that, I promise you. That's an exciting thing. You know, being a white kid who spent time being raised in an African-American home, I knew very early that there was very little difference between me and other people, and the ability to um to lead out with unconditional love and respect people where they stand, not focused on what's wrong with them. You know, throughout your life you're going to find so many people that will disrespect you. It might be your teeth aren't white enough, your feet are too big. Again, human beings are silly. They will come up with the dumbest reasons to hate each other. And I've met millions of people on this planet. I'm going to tell you all right now, we are far more alike than similar. And they'll tell you, oh, there's those bad people over there. There's such thing as those people. And I've been to all 50 states. I've been around the world. I've flown over 7 million miles meeting people. And I've never met those people. They're just human beings. And so you don't need to be intimidated by anyone. You don't need to be scared of anybody. The worst fears and pain that you have, other people are experiencing these things. People act like they're not experiencing them, but it's called the human condition. Everybody is. So I promise you, do not need to be afraid of other people or ever feel inferior to another person. A lot of my life, I thought, well, this guy is more talented than me because they have more abilities, or they have more money, or they have more resources. I call that the great lie. That's not reality. People are not better than other people, and everybody is really equal. We need to show each other respect no matter where they're standing. It doesn't matter how much money people have. It doesn't matter how tall they are, how short they are, skin color, all these things, the belief system, all those things are created by people that just want to be superior to another human being. And that's not reality. That's not real anyhow. So you do not have to buy into that. Um, so that's street resilience. So when someone disrespects me, when someone told me, hey, Christian, you can't go to college because of your learning disabilities or challenges in your life, I use that to get a 4-year degree. I got a bachelor's degree and I got a master's degree. So I used people telling me, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough to be here. And I use that as motivation to actually, I'm in some college textbooks now. So even professors have to lecture on my ideas. So don't let anybody tell you you can't do something. There will always be haters in this world, but you have to use that hate as a reason to come back with more love, more kindness, more hard work, It's one of the most powerful things anybody's ever taught me. Um, you direct your hurt and anger towards a cause rather than an individual. The civil rights movement, that's one of the big, you know, focuses of that. An example of street resilience is Rosa Parks refusing to sit on the back of the bus is street resilience. One last place I want to share with you where resilience comes from is something called resource resilience. And you see this guy fishing on a river. He didn't put the river there. He's accessing the river. Again, he didn't put it there. He's accessing a resource in his world, in his environment. People who are resilient just have a little more ability usually to access more resources. You can't be resilient on an island. You have to get help from other people. You got to get help from your teachers. What pulled me out of poverty, out of difficulty, was help from my teachers. I'm telling you, your teachers and your school administrators, that school you show up to right now, that's your river. That's where the fish are. That's where the opportunity. People always tell me, I'll say, hey, what do you want? They usually say, I want some cash. I want some G's. Well, if you want some cash, you want G's. The person who can give you the most amount of cash over your lifetime is going to be the person standing next to a chalkboard who's teaching you stuff. They're going to teach you the stuff that is going to enable you to thrive, to make a living. So do not blow those teachers off. They're the greatest resource in your life. You recognize that your resilience can be increased by tapping into the resources available to you. Again, I had two talents growing up. I could talk nonstop. I could draw really good. Make a living through nonstop talking, and again, making everything in mental health visual. You recognize that your resources include talents, relationships, physical assets, personality traits. Now remember, work ethic. Now remember, out of all of those, I had none of those. I was the least talented human being in the world. But that last one there, you see, work ethic, for almost 8 years, I traveled almost 200 days a year for 8 years. I was working over 100 hours a week for over 8 years, because that's what I had to do with my learning disabilities, with my challenges, to make it in this world. And so hard work, showing up and working hard, is one of the biggest X factors that help you be successful. If you don't show up to something, if you don't work hard, you don't get that opportunity. So hard work will take you much further than just academic smarts in this world. Remember, I have a sixth grade math level, seventh grade reading writing level, but because I work hard, sometimes I work over 100 hours a week. It's that hard work that overcompensates for some of my academic problems. Not that I really have academic problems, just that we all learn different. Um, so I want to share with you, I want to end with, let me do this real fast because I know we're about out of time here. I just want to share a couple things with you that I think will really help you. I want to end with a couple things. So remember, the first thing you have to be resilient is you have to have something to bounce back from. Then you have to flip the switch, kind of just start being resilient. You have to flip the switch, and that flipping the switch comes from a question. You have to ask yourself, how do I use this pain? How do I use this difficulty as my best friend? Now, when that pain kicks in, you're going to have negative emotions. You're going to feel sad, hurt, angry. You're going to feel like giving up. And that's where that battery comes in. You want to maximize your positive and negative emotions. When you feel sad, hurt, or angry, use that as a reason to work harder, to be more loving, to be more kind, to be more forgiving. There's no law in the universe that says you cannot take a negative emotion and create a productive outcome with it. And then I want you to tap into relational resilience. People you're with, when you're with them, you're safe with them. They're not putting you in positions you could be hurt or arrested or in danger. Those are real friends. So you want to have those relationships where people believe in you and you believe in them. And then you want to tap into street resilience. You want to use any type of disrespect as a reason not to give up. And then also past mistakes. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes. Every human being messes up. Humans that are highly resilient use those mistakes. They learn from those mistakes. And then they ask themselves, how can I be a better person because of the mistakes in my life? And then the next thing you want to be able to tap into is this resource resilience. It's just, you have to get help from other people. You want to access resources at school, at home, in your neighborhood. Look for people that can help you. And then, and then I want to emphasize it's important that you focus on what you're doing right. When your head hits the pillow at night, ask yourself, what did I do right today? How can I do more of that tomorrow? It's like a snowball rolling down a mountain. It would turn into an avalanche. It would get bigger and bigger and bigger as you focus on what's right with you. There's no shortage of people that will focus on your deficit, your mistakes, what's wrong with you. You don't have to do that to yourself. You can focus on what's right with yourself. And then just remember, any feeling you have is temporary. If you feel, man, I feel really depressed right now, I feel like giving up, I promise you, those are the dark clouds. That sun is going to show back up. It may, again, it may be 2 more days, it may be an hour later. It's just that you don't really control any thought or emotion that comes into your head, into your heart. They just come and go like clouds. So you just want to watch them and they'll go by eventually. So don't give up. Um, and then every day you want to do something physical for your body, get some exercise, and then do something fun for your mind. I don't care whether it's playing a video game or watching a movie. Do something that just relieves your mind from anxiety, from stress, from judgment. Just give your mind a break every day, for just an hour or two. You got to get your schoolwork done, do some other things, but give your mind that rest. And then do something inspirational every day. Do something, watch something on YouTube that's inspirational. Interview a family member that inspires you, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. Find out, man, what did they overcome in their life? What made them resilient? And get some inspiration every day. And then last, I just want to leave you with how I got through school with my learning disabilities. I came up with something called the No F game plan. I would go to every class. Now, let me put it this way: I would shoot for A's, but I would never get below a D because I would get just as much credit with a D as an A plus. Now, I would shoot for A's. You want to get the highest grade possible, but as long as you don't fail a class, then your progress doesn't stop. So what enabled me to be able to get through classes when I couldn't pass any tests is I would go to every class, sit on the front row or as close to the front of the room as I could. I would do all the homework assignments, and then I would do enough extra credit to make sure I got that D. So if the teacher said, look, write a 10-page paper, I'd write a 15-page paper, a 20-page paper. I would always do more work than what the teacher was asking me. And then they'd always open up another door for me. So it's called my no F game plan. It's almost impossible to fail a class if you do these three things. Now, this does not work usually in math or foreign language, but outside of math or foreign language, if you go to every class, sit on as close to the front of the room as you can, do all the homework assignments and do enough extra credit, and again, whatever the assignment the teacher gives you for extra credit, do more than they asked. And I promise you, you will not fail that class. And so, use that no F game plan. And then I want to end with, you guys are my heroes. You are worth, if you took all the money of every building on this planet, I don't even know the word that you see, every building in New York or Los Angeles or San Diego, you took all the gold, all the silver, let's just call that $1 billion. I don't even know what that is. I made that up. And so you as an individual are worth more than all the wealth on this planet. And when I was your age, I didn't understand that. I'm in my 50th year. I'm 50 years old now. And the one thing I know for sure is that you're worth more than any amount of money, any amount of wealth on this planet. And so the next time you drive into any urban environment, you see, any city, and you see all those buildings for the rest of your life, I want you to say to yourself, I heard from Christian Moore, I'm worth more than everything out there. And it's not, you can't even put a price on the worth of a human being. And again, when you really can internalize that and understand that, then you will push through those difficult moments when you need to be resilient. If I was able to do that, you can do it. And again, you guys have far more talent and abilities than me. So never, ever give up on yourself. That sun will always come out. Thank you all for your time. You guys are the best. Talk to you later.